On this episode of Your City at Work, we're going to talk to one of the newest members of Paducah's leadership team, Police Chief Brian Laird. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Your City at Work. I'm Public Information Officer Pam Spencer. When Brandon Barnhill announced that he would be retiring of Chief of Police of the Paducah Police Department effective December 2018, we were sad to lose such a great leader for that department. But we didn't have to look far. We found another great law enforcement leader. We promoted Assistant Chief Brian Laird to Chief of Police. And joining me now is Paducah Police Chief Brian Laird. Thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning, thank you.
Well, I want to talk to you about, this is such a wonderful promotion for you. Tell me a little bit about your track to becoming Chief of Police.
Sure. I grew up in Metropolis, Illinois, which is right across the river from Paducah. So anything that you did, you pretty much had to come to Paducah to do it. There's not much in Metropolis. But after graduating high school, I went to school at Shawnee College for a couple of years, just not really knowing what I wanted to do. I think a lot of people feel like they know that they want to be a law enforcement officer from the time they're little. Right. They dress up as police officers and things like that. At the time, I really didn't know what I was looking to do with the rest of my life. After spending 2 years at Shawnee, I went to Murray State and enrolled in the criminal justice program there. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do an internship with the police department. So in the fall of 2000, I came and spent about 3 months, about 3 days a week, riding along with police officers with Paducah, and got to spend time with the detective division as well. And so that really just let me know how great of a department it was. Now that was, 19 years ago, and but it still holds true. It's a great department. So that kind of facilitated my applying with the department. And so then in June of 2001, I was hired and left and went to the police academy. And
you've done a little bit of everything while at the Paducah Police Department. Tell me about some of your different roles.
I have. I've done pretty much everything that you can think of that can be done in the police department. I've done that. When I was a patrol officer, I worked bike patrol. I worked some specialized assignments. In 2005, I transferred to our detective division. I worked as a detective for a while and had some really good mentors there and got to experience a lot and gain a lot of knowledge. And then my first promotion came in 2007. I was promoted to sergeant, and I worked as a sergeant till 2014. And during that time, I worked in both the operations division, which is our uniformed officers, as well as the support services division, which is our detectives. So I've also had the opportunity to work with our civilian employees with the records and evidence division as well. So I was promoted to captain in 2014 and then assistant chief in 2018. As a captain, I worked through all divisions as well. And then I was an assistant chief for about 7 months when Chief Barnhill decided he was going to move on to something else.
Well, one of the questions, I just want you to fill in a sentence here. I mean, you've done so many different roles there at the Paducah Police Department. What is your job as Paducah Police Chief? What do you see it as?
I'm still learning it, but I think the main role of the Chief of the Police Department is to provide good leadership to the police department, as well as being the public face and public image of the police department. So the officers have day-to-day operations and things that they need to do, and it's my job to manage the budget, make sure we have plenty of personnel, make sure policy and directives and things like that are in order, and just be the facilitator for getting police work done.
Well, you've had the law enforcement experience, but you've also been working toward professional development, and you've gone through different types of academies as well, just to make sure that you are prepared. Talk a little bit about some of those things that you've gone through.
Sure. In 2007, I went to the First Line Supervisors Academy, which was 3 weeks, and then I went through a program called the Criminal Justice Executive Development Program through the Department of Criminal Justice Training. It was a 5-week program. And then in 2014, I spent 13 weeks at the University of Louisville in residence there, going through a course called the Administrative Officers course. And so when I left that, I had some credits towards a master's degree. And so I finished that up through the University of Louisville in the fall of 2016, I believe it was.
So have you been trying to prepare yourself to be chief, or was this kind of in your back of your head somewhere?
I didn't start in police work ever thinking that I would be the chief of police, nor was that ever really a goal. As my career progressed, and in the last, 2 or 3, 4 years, you start recognizing and looking ahead, and I had people looking backwards as well. Chief Barnhill did a great job of setting us up and continuing on his legacy of leadership and a good succession plan for us, and that's one of the things that I want to continue to do as well. But I never really planned on it, but you start seeing how things are lining up, and that it would be a good job to at least be prepared for it if that opportunity came about. So I'm excited.
Well, tell me a little bit about the Paducah Police Department, the great opportunities that you have with the department. And it's a great team.
It is. We have a very, very strong group of people that work for the Paducah Police Department. Some of the things that encourage people to come here and what makes us as good of a group as what we are is some of the specialized assignments that we have. A lot of the smaller agencies don't necessarily have the need for some of the specialized assignments we have, similar to like a SWAT team, a bomb squad. Our bomb squad is one of 5 across the state.
Only 5 in the state.
Only 5 in the state.
Right.
So that's a pretty important thing. And they cover a 13-county region, so part of the equipment that we get, and we offer some joint response to things, and for the far western part of the state. And then we have something new that we developed in 2015, I believe it was the digital forensics, which is basically anything that's electronic. We have people that can dive into the inner workings of an iPhone, of computers and things like that. A lot of the things that we do now are on our phones, so it's imperative for the police to stay on top of that and be able to access that information for criminal needs if we need it.
Because you're doing that in-house. You're not having to mail that off to have...
Correct. We facilitated that through a grant through the Secret Service, and then they've helped us with some equipment along the way. And what that does is we kind of we triage a lot of stuff before it goes to the State Police Crime Laboratory, or if we can, we deal with it in-house. So we work with many agencies on the western part of the state, again, similar to the bomb squad. And there's over 20 agencies that we assist with collecting their digital evidence as it relates to whatever the crime may be that they're investigating. So that's a pretty important role, and we feel like that we have that capability to do that, and so we want to help other people out with that as well. Our turnaround time is much faster than going to the crime lab where everybody's sending stuff. So where it may take a year to get some information back, we can typically get it back in 30 to 60 days.
And I know training is such a big thing that the Paducah Police Department emphasizes, and I know you folks try to make sure that when you go get some training, you do some train the trainer so that you can bring it back in-house. Talk a little bit about the training hours.
Sure. Every officer in the state of Kentucky has a mandatory 40 hours a year of in-service training that's required by law. So on top of that, we typically try to do at least another 40 hours of specialized training of some sort. Typically it's related to whatever that officer their assignment is, or something that they're interested in. And then we do a lot of in-house training, and that's another one of the opportunities that are there for people within the Paducah Police Department, is to be a trainer, to be a teacher. So we teach things like taser. We have taser instructors, defensive tactics, driving. Driving is extremely important. We recognized that many years ago that officers put many miles on throughout the year, and that was an area that once they left the academy, there really wasn't any follow-up training to that. So, and then with the change in vehicles, police vehicles have changed as well. So it's important for people to feel comfortable with the vehicle that they're driving. So we have in-house instructors, and we utilize the Grow Airport. They close that down for us and let us go out and practice driving at least once a year.
Put the cones out.
We put the cones out. We practice traffic stops and high-speed driving and maneuvers and things like that, just to basically make it for them to be safer, as well as it's safer for the community to have people who are trained to do those things.
Well, you have such great training opportunities and specialized assignments. Have you found recruiting to be a difficulty? I know nationally it can be something that you hear talked about, but I'm just wondering locally.
I think it is. I think we are following pretty much the same trend as all the police departments across the United States see. I think some of it has to do with just a generational change. There may be pension-related issues that people see, but I don't think a lot of people start in police work looking at retirement 25 years down the road. So whenever I started back in 2000, whenever I tested with the police department, we had over 100 applicants out at the Tillman football field running and doing push-ups and sit-ups. And now we're average around 40 or 50.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily have the magic answer for what that is, but it is a challenge for us. Obviously, if you have half the candidates you used to have, then that's a much smaller pool to choose from. So we have tried to be proactive with that. We do recruiting efforts. We go to colleges and military bases and advertise on national websites and things like that. We just do whatever we can to draw people in and sell ourselves. We're competing now with, when the economy is good, there's plenty of jobs out there, and so we're competing with a lot of other jobs that don't require shift work, that don't require the danger that's out there for the police officers.
What is the standard background that somebody needs to have to even apply?
Our current standards right now are 60 hours of college credit, so that's basically the equivalent of an associate's degree, 2 years of military, full-time military experience, or 1 year of sworn law enforcement experience. So if they had worked at an agency somewhere else for at least 1 year and they had successful evaluations and things like that, then they could apply with us as well.
And you call those laterals?
Those are called lateral candidates. So we, in the past year, we've had individuals come to us from Georgia, North Carolina. A lot of those folks are coming home. They're coming back to the region. They've moved off and now they're ready to maybe settle down. Something had taken them away from here and now they're coming back to this area for policing.
And so we see a great benefit with those folks who come back here, because do they have to go to the police academy then?
They do not. They have to, as long as they meet certain requirements, then their academy from their previous employer, then they do not have to go to the academy. They have to have some legal update and things like that. We're talking about 3 weeks worth of training versus 20 weeks. And so the new recruit that doesn't have any police background at all is a 20-week academy. And so the turnaround time is a lot faster to getting them on the street and actually getting to work.
Because you have a very young force right now. Talk a little bit about the youth that you have.
Sure. So some people view that as some of the challenges that are out there. I think it's more of an opportunity. I think that we're sitting at just under 50%, right about 49% of the officers have 5 years experience or less with the City of Paducah. So I think that offers a unique opportunity for us. We have a lot of youth that's in there, and the youth drives new ideas and new innovation, and I think that's what's going to be important for us moving forward.
Talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you see with the Paducah Police Department, just Paducah as a whole, and some of those national trends that you're seeing as well.
The shift to police dealing with more social issues has significantly increased in the last several years. When I started in policing, we didn't deal with the mental health issues as much as we do. So that's really, it's important, and that takes a lot of our time. To keep the individual that's in crisis safe, as well as the officers safe, we typically have 2 officers. Anytime we have somebody that's having a mental health issue, there's always 2 officers there. And most of those things aren't resolved in 20 or 30 minutes. Those can drag on from an hour to 2 hours. If they're a danger to themselves or others, then there's transportation to be evaluated to determine if they need further treatment or not. So that's a challenge for us in dealing with the mental health issues. Those calls have increased and they take a lot more time. So that takes the officers away from doing other things. Do
you have to reach out to more local agencies and partners to have to deal with these type of scenarios?
Sometimes. So we work with Four Rivers Behavioral Health. They are in charge of the evaluation side of things. So we're actually working on a way to utilize some technology to decrease some of the amount of time the officers have to spend with that. So that's something that we're working on that hopefully within the next few months we'll be able to roll out.
And another challenge that definitely is in the media a lot is the opioid challenge. Explain how that affects the department.
Sure. I think that we should also touch on homelessness as well.
Yes.
So all three of those kind of work together, unfortunately. So a lot of times, you know, someone ends up being homeless due to the mental health issues or due to a drug addiction. Our community and communities across the United States have drug addiction issues. The unfortunate thing is that typically leads to criminal acts such as theft and burglaries and things like that to support that drug addiction. So it's a challenge. We go back to the social service issues. Whenever the officers are at the police academy, they typically don't receive much training on the mental health side of it. So it's more focused on tactics and just the law, the basics of being a police officer. And so we have to look at that internally and say, what extra do we need to do? You know, the academy is just your basic academy, but it's a significant issue for us, so we have to figure out ways to train our officers to better deal with those situations.
Do you think that's going to change in the future with the academy having to add more psychology type classes?
I think there ultimately will be changes, but I think a lot of that's probably going to rest on the departments when the officers come back and they get into their field training program and they spend time out, they get to experience that. The on-the-job training with that is extremely important. So I think the academy will probably continue to be more of the basics that are there. There's more, you know, the academy recognized that and they pushed out crisis intervention training, which was a statewide initiative to teach officers about people in crisis. And so that was something that was started, I think, about 2014 or 2015, and it's an in-service class. So the 40-hour class that officers have to take to maintain their certification, that was one of those classes that was offered. So we recognize that, and we put as many people in that every year as we can, and all but the most brand new officers that are out there have attended that class. So anybody that's been there for any period of time, and that's the number one priority for officers for their first class, is to get them into that extra training.
Now talk a little bit about some of the internal team building that you do, because with so many new things going on and new challenges and younger officers, you have to work to really make sure that that team building is there.
We do. You know, we have a really good team and everybody really works well together. So the fortunate thing for me is that there's work to do, but there's not a ton of work to do. I'm not starting from the ground level on building a good team. It's just more fine-tuning something that's already there. But I think that some of the ways that we're going to work on doing that is just being more efficient and effective with the way that we police. As we work together through projects and things like that, the team will continue to grow. And we're looking at implementing some different shift schedules and different shift models in the future. And so some of that will incorporate the officers working together more and more closely.
As you're researching other cities and you're seeing some of these national articles, are you seeing things that you would like to implement in Paducah or test or pilot? Or
there are a ton of initiatives out there that range from technology to you know, ways to deal with criminals and things. So, but I think that really focusing in on an area that is we have lacked in is just the officer wellness, the mental health and wellness and physical wellness of our officers and our employees. So just like anybody that EMS workers and firemen that see traumatic events, a lot of times police officers just shrug it off and they're just going to tough it out and not talk about something that they've seen that may weigh on their mind. So there's some initiatives across the state that have started to officers that go to events that are traumatic, whether it be a death or things like that, for them to be able to go talk with somebody and understand that it's okay to do that. So there's some models out there and some other agencies that are doing things related to just the psychological benefit of communication and being able to talk about the scene that you went to, or you know, the child death that you had to go to, things like that are traumatic for anybody. But when you see that repeatedly over and over, you know, the studies have shown that it has an impact. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can for the mental wellness of our officers. So that's one of the areas that I'm really looking at, and just gathering some research to see how we can apply that here.
as you're saying that the challenges of the day-to-day life as a police officer, how do you try to balance that in your own personal life? What kind of energizes you?
One of the things that really energizes me is just seeing other people be successful. So whether that's on the ground level of the officer who does a really good job on a traffic stop and catches somebody that's the wanted criminal from somewhere else, or gets a large amount of drugs off the street and prevents that from going out into the community, or a detective who works a case and is able to track down somebody who committed a crime, and even our supervisors. So we have been fortunate enough to work very closely with pretty much everybody at the department for many years, and to see them grow, and we grew together along the way, but to look back and realize that I had maybe just a little bit of influence in some of that, to see them be successful in their careers, that's what really makes me feel like I've done something good, and that's what really pushes me to continue to do that.
And what message do you give to the Paducah Police Department if you were standing in front of them right now? What is that motivational message that you have?
Well, number one is that they're doing a great job. First and foremost, they do a great job day in and day out. We all have, we all make mistakes. We'll have little hiccups along the way, but that's life, and we deal with those things as necessary. But mainly just, to take care of each other and to be a good team, be a good teammate. And that's with everything, whether that's in your personal life or in your professional life. No matter what you're associated with, if you can be a good teammate, then you're going to be part of something successful.
Tell me about your message for the community. What do you want the community to feel and think when they see Paducah Police Department?
I don't really want that to change. We have a great community. One of the things that I truly love about the community that we serve is the overwhelming kindness and generosity of the community. So as it relates to the police department, there's not a week goes by, and sometimes a day goes by, that we don't receive a wonderful compliment on one of the officers. We have people that stop by and drop off cookies and just a variety of different things for them, just to show their appreciation. And even whenever times get tough, the community is always there. And then when we look out and try to work on initiatives like our Housing Authority Fund Day, we reach out and ask for help because there's certain things that we have limitations, and the generosity of the community to support our initiatives and just to support the community in itself is just pretty amazing.
And I know the focus has really been with the Paducah Police Department, that community-oriented policing of getting out in the community through Coffee with a Cop and, as you said, the Housing Authority. Why is that so important?
Well, we can't police the city of Paducah without the community.
Right.
That's who gives us the power to do so. And the majority of crimes that are out there, there's somebody that has some information about that, whether it be a minute detail, but the police can't be everywhere. So it's important to partner with the community to be able to solve crimes and just to be able to prevent crimes in the beginning. So I think that's just probably the most important thing for us, is to continue that relationship and expand upon it in every avenue that we can.
Well, is there any final message that you have? Any final thing that you want to talk about?
Just to say that again, and reinforce that for the community that's out there, we have a great department. We have people that truly care about the community that they serve. And I think we have a community that cares about itself. And when we can kind of merge those two things together and continue to expand on the community policing, that's just going to make this community thrive even more.
And I think it is thriving, and we definitely want to keep that momentum going. Well, thank you so much, Chief Brian Laird, for joining me today. And I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of Your City at Work. And definitely, to learn more about the City of Paducah and the Paducah Police Department, visit paducahky.gov. And also on the website, you can find a link to this video and other videos, as well as on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Your City at Work.